And the last thing, and remember, this is significant here, America passed the Lend-Lease Act, which says we're going to sell weapons to our allies in Europe. And specifically, we steered clear of naming any countries, but we all know who it's pointing at. All right, the British, man, because they're dealing with the Germans over there. Oof. All right, now America has another problem that it's got to consider too. While the fighting's going on over in Europe, all right, our good friends, the Germans, are making friends with other people. Okay, Germany and Italy were already pals, and they form an alliance with Japan. Konnichiwa. All right. They form something called the Rome, Berlin, Tokyo Axis. Right? Those are the three capital cities of Italy, Germany, and Japan. The Rome, Berlin, Tokyo Axis. They agreed to defend one another. Yes. Both, technically. Okay. Now, this alliance, they refer to these three countries as the Axis powers. Ooh, sounds very menacing. Okay. Now, question for you. Italy and Germany, they're similar in culture. They're both in Central Europe. Why would it be weird for Hitler to make friends with the Japanese? Hold on, not you. Parker. What do you mean? They're not Aryans. In fact, how do most Europeans look at the Asians in general? Inferior. Inferior race. Why is Hitler making friends with this nation? All right, this is an alliance of strategy for Hitler and the Nazis. They're like, hey, America's selling weapons to the British. They may get involved in the war. We might need help. And so getting the Japanese on board is a good idea. Gabe. Yes, in some ways, it's like he's going a little strategic here. Okay. Now, Japan also was not only designed to bring in the alliance to cause the United States problems, but also to cause the Soviet Union potential problems. Right? Because Japan's really not far from them either. Right? So Hitler and Mussolini, they bring in the Japanese because they're like, these guys are useful. Right? Remember, they're a nation with modern weapons, a modern navy. They have beefed themselves up. They have access to resources. Okay? Now, remember also, Franklin Roosevelt had set up a trade embargo with Japan. We were no longer trading oil with them. Ooh, why are we not trading oil with them? Parker. Nope, there's another reason. Rape of Nanking and all the terrible actions over there. They're incurring terrible violence on the Chinese. And so America's like, hey, we finally had enough. We're taking at least some measure here. By the way, Japan, why is it a big deal that we cut off trading of oil with them, Quinlan? They are terribly limited on natural resources. And if you want to fuel an army and a navy and an air force of some kind, you need oil. Now, the United States is negotiating with Japan to try to get trading going back on and to try to get Japan to pull back from China a little bit. Okay? So we're trying to negotiate our way out of this. We really want to avoid conflict if at all possible. But Japan has pretty much made up their mind that negotiations are just a stall tactic. Japan's made up their mind that they're going to have to attack the United States. Okay? And the guy they get to plan the attack on the United States is this gentleman, Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto. Not to be confused with Kittymoto or Motorola. Yamamoto is the Japanese official who's in charge of planning an attack on the United States. All right? And here's his plan. Okay? Yamamoto says, here's the problem that Japan has. If we're going to go to the war with the United States, which he says we realize we have to because we're limited on resources, all right, and the United States is cutting us off. So he says we got to attack the United States. They're cutting off our oil supply. They're choking us to death. Yamamoto says if we go to war with the United States, we have to win the war within 18 months. Okay? Why does he say that we have to win the war within 18 months? Not you, Quinlan. I know you know. No. I need somebody different. Why would he insist that Japan, whatever they do, he says, we got to win the war within 18 months. We need to win fast. Why would he insist that Japan needs to win quickly? Whatever we're going to do, he says, we need an early knockout. This cannot go on for a long time. Think you know? If you're going to fight a long war, what do you need a lot of? Resources. And what is Japan limited on? Resources. It's kind of like a boxer, okay? If you know a boxer is a really good fighter, but he doesn't, like, he can't go the distance, he can't go the full 12 rounds. You got to win within those first few rounds and knock out your opponent quick. So you focus everything into winning the fight quickly. And Yamamoto says, look, if we don't win the war within 18 months, we're in big trouble because we know who has more access to resources. America does. It's no question, okay? So he says, look, we need to deliver an early victory. We got to win within 18 months. We need to strike America on its home turf. Okay? We got to strike America on its home turf. And here's where they select Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. Okay? And there are reasons that Pearl Harbor is the place of choice. And you see it right here on this map. Quinlan, why is Pearl Harbor the ideal place to attack? It is where the naval ships, America's Pacific Fleet, the naval ships are all docked. It is the naval base in the Pacific region for the United States. And Yamamoto says, we need to attack here and wipe out their naval fleet in one good shot. And he goes, if we can do that, then they're going to be crippled and it'll take them a long time to recover. And we could try to get them to come up with a peace agreement very quickly. Okay? So he says, we're going to attack Pearl Harbor. We're going to wipe out their naval fleet in the Pacific in just one shot. Sometimes, Abby, you only get one shot, one opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted. That's what Slim Shady says. Right? And they attack on December 7th, 1941. That's the day that the attack is scheduled for Pearl Harbor. Right? It's a Sunday, and they plan on attacking in the morning. Why on a Sunday morning? Not you. Not you, sir. A lot of people are at church. And if you're not at church and you're a sailor, what have you been out doing the night before? Out drinking. You probably got a hangover. So the sailors might have been out the night before. A lot of people are at church in the morning. All right. This is a good time for an attack. I know, it's bizarre. Okay. So ultimately, it's a good time for an attack. And look, here's the thing. Okay. The attack on Pearl Harbor, all right, the Japanese are going to completely catch the United States off guard. America has no idea it's coming. Okay? December 7th, it's a successful attack. And when we say a successful attack, let me go back to our ships here for a second. Most of the ships you see here, most of those ships are going to get sunk or crippled. Right? There's something on the order of like I think a couple dozen ships, couple dozen naval ships, over 100 airplanes are shot before they can even get off the ground. I mean, Japanese gets complete surprise victory here. Right? They do a number on the American Navy. This right here, what they call Battleship Row. I think all 8 of the battleships were either sunk or disabled. A lot of the other smaller ships are really damaged, and it's an ugly day for America. Right? December 7th. Later on, Franklin Roosevelt would decide, or would call it a day that lives in infamy. Right? We don't forget these things. Now, here's the thing though. When Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, okay, they made a couple mistakes, some very big mistakes. Right? One of the mistakes they made, you know? They didn't what? That's a small thing. All right. The most important ships in a naval fleet are the aircraft carriers. Okay? And I'm not trying to insult your intelligence if you don't know much about naval ships, but aircraft carriers are the big ships with the giant runways on them that can store planes. All right? Aircraft carriers at the time could usually store about 100 airplanes on them, and it's basically like a floating fortress. And none of the aircraft carriers were at Pearl Harbor that day. So America kind of lucks out a little bit. The most important thing, the Japanese are like, we got to wipe out those aircraft carriers, and none of them are there. They were out doing practice maneuvers. There was not something that was a regular schedule, right? And sometimes things go wrong in a military operation. Plus, you can't exactly call it off once you've started. All right. So look, number one, they didn't get the most important prize there. They didn't sink the ships that they needed to sink. Okay. What else, Quinlan? That's a minor thing too. You can always get more fuel easily. All right. Another big thing here too. Okay. Another big mistake they made was that they did not send their third wave of airplanes. They had planned on 3 waves of airplanes. Like the first wave would go out, and while they're finishing their attack, the second wave would start flying out and prepare it, and then the third one. So it's a constant barrage. They called off their attack after the second wave. They could have done more damage, but they didn't. Yamamoto thought they'd lost the element of surprise, and he didn't know where the carriers were, so he's like, those things could come back at any minute and cause problems for us. Sir. All right. When you're bombing the Pearl Harbor, he says, look, we could lose the element of surprise because if those aircraft carriers are nearby, they're going to be ready to fight. All right. And so he's like, look, we got to call it off now. We did what we came to do as best as we could. Okay. Third big mistake they make here as well. Japan underestimated America's ability to rebuild. They thought it would take America a couple of years to rebuild the ships they lost. Right? They think America's going to take a lot of time to rebuild. No, no, no. America rebuilds much faster. We replace those ships in 6 months. Right? The one thing you got, once America gets properly motivated to do something, oh man, they're on it. It's fantastic the way we work. Okay, so they made some serious mistakes. Oh, Yamamoto was said to have noted, I fear all we have done is to awaken a sleeping giant and fill him with terrible resolve. Oh, you done messed up, Japan. You woke up the beast. All right. Now, do you think it's like, for example, what is America's immediate response after they see pictures like this? We're going to war, baby. All right. And not only are we going to war with Japan, who else are we going to war with? Germany. All the people who were isolationists before, they're like, not anymore. You mess with the bull, you get the horns. You know what I'm saying? Look, you're going to see stuff like this. The propaganda posters come out in full force. Look at this one right here. Avenge December 7th. Oh my gosh, look at that guy with that fist. Do you think you had to work hard to recruit men to the U.S. Army and Navy? Not at all. All right, not at all. Look at this is the enemy. What is this Japanese soldier doing? Carrying a naked woman, and he's going to do. We know what they did. Look in the background. You see a guy on the ground who's a soldier who surrendered, who's getting bayoneted. You see flames. You see people hanging back there. This is the enemy. The admiral of the American fleet in the Pacific, a guy named Bull Halsey, he said, when we get done, the only place they'll speak Japanese is in hell. Ooh, that's kind of gutsy. I kind of like it. All right. Look, this is a great one too. Warning, our homes are in danger. All right. Oh, yeah, definitely a racist. Now, women become significant during the war effort as well. You might have seen this character before. She is well known here. Not you, because I know you know. Who is this character? Rosie the Riveter. She's featured prominently in a lot of advertisements and posters because when the men are away fighting, women need to step up and do the tasks that men usually do. They work in factories. And once again, this was happening in World War I to an extent, but it's on a much larger scale this time. Okay? And women are indispensable to the war effort. Right? This also starts to give women a nudge towards a desire for equality. Because what do women, when they start working during World War II, what do they start to realize? They can make money and they can be independent. I don't need a man. That I've been told all this time that men do these jobs, but I'm out here doing jobs in factories that men do. What is it? That's true. They're working in dangerous situations. Imagine working in a munitions factory where you're putting together bombs. I mean, literally, there's no margin for error. All right. And women do these jobs successfully. All right. It also provides women with a sense of identity. Okay. You all maybe don't realize this yet, but a lot of people, part of their identity is their career and what they do. And all of a sudden now women see that life is more than just being a housewife and a mother, that perhaps having a career is something that I want to do. Okay. And this gives women a little bit of a nudge towards equality, that they realize things about themselves that they never fully realized before. The joy of having a job that's valuable and meaningful, the money associated with it. However, what do we know happens after the men come back from the war? They take all the jobs back. And where do they expect women to go? Back to the kitchen. Make me some pie. Okay? No, women are going to change, and World War II inevitably changes them. All right? This is great too. They even look. They reach out to kids in a way. Okay, look, it's Superman fighting off Hitler and Tojo. I gets better. Look, here's Batman fighting the fascist, the Axis powers, Batman and Robin. And I love it. They've got a comic, a Batman comic, where they're like, oh, buy war stamps, ensure the 4th of July. Like telling little kids to buy war bonds and war stamps. Right? You're going to find that America, like everybody gets on board with the war effort. Right? And we'll get into details about this later on, but they encourage people like to do things like bring scrap metal. Uh, we use everything. Grow victory gardens, what they called them, where you grow your own crops so that we can send more food to the soldiers. Companies are roped into all kinds of things. Food becomes a big deal. You guys ever heard of spam before? Shoulder pork ham. Okay, a lot of companies are like, "What do we do with the leftover, meat that we get from pigs?" And they're like, "We could always put it in a potted meat." And spam gets sent over to the soldiers. They salt it, cure it, and send it over to soldiers overseas. Hershey's gets involved as well. They wanted to give soldiers a high calorie Hershey bar so that if they were low on food, they could slowly chew on it, and it's something that's portable that you can keep with you. But they also said, they told Hershey, we want it to taste terrible, because if it tastes good, they'll want to eat it all the time and they'll get too many calories. So they literally made it taste bad on purpose. And so they're like, hey, if you need calories in a hurry, it's like a little 3-inch bar was like 600 calories, and it's something you could put in your pocket. So everybody gets behind the war effort. Fun fact too. Do you know what other candy did become immensely popular back home in the United States and then started getting shipped overseas? M&Ms. If you get a chance, watch the History Channel's "The Food That Built America." Fascinating. All right, that's a good place for us to stop right